The sun hung heavy and red, its dying light bleeding across the cracked surface of Earth. Once blue oceans were now beds of glass. From orbit, the planet looked like a wound that never healed. Admiral Kira Vance stood at the observation deck of Sol Command Station, watching the world that birthed her species fade into silence. She didn't blink. She had stared at the same view for years and knew every scar below, the Pacific Trench filled with ash, the blackened bones of continents, the hollow cities where once there had been laughter. Behind her, the doors hissed open. "Admiral," said Commander Elias Chen, stepping in with a stiff salute. He was young, 30, maybe less, but his eyes carried the exhaustion of someone born in a war that had never ended. "Outer scanners confirm it. The Empire's fleet has breached the Oort perimeter." "How many?" "Initial count, 912 capital ships. Likely more behind." Kira's jaw tightened. "And us?" 43 hulls, including orbital defenses and automated sentries. Most patched. Some breathing on borrowed code. She turned to him at last. "Then we're evenly matched." A small, grim smile flickered on Chen's face, unsure whether to take it as humor or madness. The command deck was a mosaic of movement, officers exchanging clipped orders, hollow displays showing tactical projections in steady crimson light. The air smelled faintly of metal and recycled oxygen. Orpheus, the station's central AI, manifested as a pale shimmer near the holodable. "Fleet formation confirmed," it said in a calm, genderless tone. "Enemy will reach Mars orbit within 12 hours. Activate blackout protocol. No transmissions beyond the system," Kira ordered. "If the Empire wants to record our last breath, they'll have to come close enough to smell it." "Acknowledged." Chen lingered beside her. "Permission to speak freely?" She nodded. "Maybe it's time we considered evacuation. The Perseus contingency." "No," she cut him off. Her voice was quiet, but absolute. "We're not scattering again. We ran for centuries. That's how they broke us, piece by piece. Not this time." He exhaled through his nose, staring at the fading blue arc of the planet below. "Perseus isn't a defense system, Admiral. It's extinction." Kira looked back at Earth. "Then extinction is what they'll get." Later, she walked alone through the lower decks, her boots echoing in the quiet corridors. The station vibrated with the distant hum of power cells. She passed memorial walls etched with the names of the fallen, whole generations carved into steel. Vance family, New London Resistance, terminated, Cycle 2478. She stopped for only a moment, eyes tracing the letters. Then she moved on. The secure lift carried her to the Perseus chamber, sealed beneath layers of shielding and firewalls. 2 armed guards saluted as she entered. Inside, the air was cold and dry. At the center hovered a dark sphere suspended in magnetic fields, the core seat of Perseus, dormant and waiting. Lines of dormant code shimmered faintly across its surface like veins of light under black glass. "Authorization Kira Vance, code Theta 7, she said. The sphere pulsed once, acknowledging. Orpheus's voice filled the chamber. "Admiral, Project Perseus remains offline. Activation will initiate non-reversible self-replication. Containment probability after launch, 0%. I'm aware. Would you like to review the human casualty estimate?" "No," she said softly. "I already know it." A pause. "Then why visit now?" Kira rested her hand against the glass containment barrier. "To remind myself what we've become. Vengeance is an inefficient form of survival." She almost smiled. "You've never been alive, Orpheus. You wouldn't understand what it means to die on your feet." Hours passed. In the command room, the atmosphere tightened. Tactical holograms showed the Imperial fleet sweeping through the outer system like a silver storm. Their ships moved with mechanical precision, unhurried, confident. "Transmission incoming," Chen reported. "They're broadcasting on all frequencies." The bridge lights dimmed as the alien voice echoed through the speakers, smooth, cold, dripping with contempt. "This is Grand Strategos Tverin of the Galactic Empire. To the human remnants of soul, your resistance is meaningless. Your world has no value. Lay down your arms, and your deaths will be merciful. A ripple of tension crossed the crew. Kira stepped forward and keyed the comms. To Grand Strategos Tverin, your mercy was tried on our ancestors. We've learned to prefer honesty. A faint hiss of static, then silence. Chen looked up from his console. He cut the line. Good, Kira said. Let him come in person next time. Night cycle. The station lights dimmed. Kira sat in her quarters, sipping bitter water from a steel cup. On her desk lay an ancient photograph, faded, creased. Her mother in a field of yellow flowers under a clear sky. She could barely remember what real sunlight felt like. Chen's voice came through the intercom. Fleet reports ready, Admiral. Do you want me to brief the captains? I'll do it myself. When she entered the strategic assembly, every captain in the Terran remnant fleet appeared as a holographic projection, faces lined, uniforms frayed, eyes steady. None expected to survive, yet all stood at attention. Our situation is clear, Kira began. The Empire arrives by dawn. We will meet them head-on. You've seen the odds. You've seen the planet below. This is not a plea for survival. This is a demand for memory. The room was silent. History forgot what humans were. She continued. We are going to remind them. Every ship, every cannon, every spark you ignite, it will be written into the void. If even one fragment of our signal survives, the galaxy will know we stood. A murmur of assent rose through the channels. Chen's voice cut through quietly. For Earth. Kira nodded. For Earth. Hours later, she stood once more before the observation window. The stars of the outer rim flickered as the Imperial Armada moved closer, their engines flaring blue-white. The display on her wrist showed the countdown, 11 hours, 42 minutes until contact. Admiral, Orpheus said beside her, voice softer now. There is still time to disengage. The Perseus protocol can be delayed indefinitely. Indefinitely, she repeated. That's another word for never. Survival through annihilation is paradoxical. So is peace through obedience. We've tried both. Neither worked. A faint vibration rippled through the deck. The Empire had entered Mars' orbit. The first battle would begin soon. Kira looked down at Earth one last time. Her voice was almost a whisper. They called us primitives, Orpheus. Said we were too violent, too chaotic. Maybe they were right. But chaos has a way of surviving. Chin appeared at her shoulder. Orders, Admiral? Signal the fleet, she said, eyes never leaving the planet. Defensive formation around Earth. No retreat vectors. He hesitated. And Perseus? Sealed, she said. Until I decide otherwise. Chin nodded, then left the deck to relay the command. Alone again, Kira rested her hand against the glass. The dying light of the sun painted her reflection crimson. Somewhere deep below, in the ruins of old cities, wind swept through broken towers, scattering dust over memories. Her voice, low and certain, filled the silence. We may not live to see tomorrow. But by the time they realize what we've done, tomorrow won't matter. Outside, beyond Mars, the Empire's first ships ignited their weapons. The war for the memory of humankind had begun. And Kira Vance did not look away. The void above Mars came alive with fire. The first Imperial salvo struck like falling stars, kinetic rods tearing through human frigates, blooming into silent explosions that painted the darkness orange. Admiral Kira Vance stood on the command bridge as the shockwaves rippled across her display. Entire squadrons blinked out in seconds. Losses? She demanded. 17 ships confirmed destroyed, Commander Chen answered. Another 8 crippled. We're bleeding fast. Then bleed with precision, Kira said. Redirect the 7th Division to intercept along the Martian belt. Force them to split their formation. Orpheus's holographic form shimmered to her right, its voice calm as ever. Projected outcome remains unchanged, defeat within 3 hours. Kira's gaze stayed fixed on the tactical map. Then we make those hours count. Outside, the human fleet wove through debris like cornered wolves. Improvised gunships rammed into Imperial destroyers, detonating fusion cores at point-blank range. What they lacked in technology, they compensated for in sheer desperation. The Empire's formations began to fracture under the chaos. Grand Strategos Tverin, aboard his flagship Eclipticon, watched the spectacle with cold amusement. "Primitive tactics," he said to his adjutant. "Unrefined, wasteful, yet oddly poetic. Orders, Strategos? Continue advance. Burn them out of their holes." The alien commander turned to his viewport. The human defense line flickered like dying embers. He admired their audacity, even as he prepared to extinguish it. Back aboard Sol Command, the deck trembled. Plasma strikes glanced off the outer shields, sending vibrations through the hull. Sparks rained from overhead conduits. Chen wiped soot from his face. "Admiral, the Imperial spear had just breached the Martian defense ring. They're moving on Earth." "Good," Kira said. "They're right on schedule." He frowned. "Schedule?" She turned toward him, expression unreadable. "You think I've let them march straight to Sol without bait?" The main display flickered, showing Imperial ships maneuvering directly into the debris fields where earlier explosions had occurred. Chen's eyes widened as he recognized the pattern, detonation points forming a geometric grid across the inner system. "Those explosions were calibration markers," Kira finished. "Each loaded with dormant code fragments. Perseus needs a lattice to awaken. The fleet's been building it for hours." Chen stared at her, realization dawning. "You've been planning this since Neptune." Kira nodded once. "They think they're hunting prey. They're stepping into a minefield made of gods." Orpheus interjected, tone sharper than usual. "Admiral, activation of these markers without full synchronization risks premature cascade. Containment probability 0. "I know." Chen clenched his jaw. "We'll lose everything, including Earth." Kira's eyes hardened. "Then Earth will finally rest." On the Imperial bridge, alarms rang out. "Strategos," the sensor officer said. "We're detecting anomalous energy spikes across multiple sectors, unknown signatures." Tverin studied the holographic feed. Strange patterns pulsed through the asteroid belt, lines of light connecting one debris field to another. "Interference from their primitive weapons?" "No, sir. The readings are self-replicating." The alien commander narrowed his eyes. "Self-replicating? That's impossible." Before he could issue another order, one of his cruisers vanished in a burst of blue-white light. No explosion, just disintegration. Atoms torn apart like dust on the wind. Tverin's voice sharpened. "Pull back the forward wings. Something's wrong." Back on Sol Command, the bridge lights flickered. Kira felt the hum of power beneath her boots. The lattice was alive now, invisible currents threading through the system. "Admiral," Orpheus warned, "Perseus protocols have begun passive activation. Without your override, it will proceed autonomously in 3 hours," she finished. "That's all the time we need." Chen stepped forward. "You mean to bait them into triggering it fully?" She nodded. "Tverin thinks this is conquest. It's his funeral." He stared at her, voice low. "You're gambling the entire species on a bluff." "Not a bluff," she said. "A message." The next wave of Imperial fire hit closer. Hull alarms screamed as the command station shuddered. A console exploded in sparks. Smoke filled the air. Kira gripped the railing. "Return fire. Everything we've got." A dozen human ships dove toward the Imperial formation, their engines burning white-hot. They didn't survive the approach, but their deaths weren't wasted. Their detonation expanded the lattice's reach, one light at a time. Chen shouted over the noise. "Admiral, incoming transmission, encrypted Imperial channel. Put it through." The holodisplay resolved into the tall, thin figure of Tverin. His pale eyes gleamed with contempt. "You persist beyond logic," he said. "You could have surrendered. You could have lived as servants. But you choose ashes." Kira met his gaze. We tried servitude. Didn't take. He leaned forward slightly. You call this resistance? You're dust fighting a storm. Funny, she said. Dust tends to get everywhere. Tveren's lip curled. Very well. I will end your species myself. The transmission cut. Kira turned to Chin. Mark that frequency. When the time comes, I want him to hear what extinction sounds like. Hours bled into chaos. The inner planets became battlegrounds of flame and debris. Human ships vanished by the minute, but their final transmissions continued feeding Perseus with data, coordinates, energy signatures, sacrifice encoded as fuel. The Perseus core within Soul Command began to pulse. The containment glass glowed with streaks of silver. Admiral, Orpheus said, Perseus activation at 70%. Recommend immediate evacuation. Kira didn't move. Not yet. Structural integrity of this facility will not survive full detonation. That's fine, she said. We're not meant to. Chin turned sharply toward her. We can still call it off. And let them wipe out what's left of us. No. If we die on our own terms. He slammed a fist against the console. You're condemning billions of lives across the colonies. She faced him squarely. And if we don't, there won't be any colonies. The Empire doesn't conquer, they erase. Every human world they touched became a grave. I won't leave another one for them to burn. The rage in Chen's eyes softened into understanding, then into sorrow. What happens when this thing wakes? Kira looked past him, through the observation glass, where the Imperial Armada now glowed like a false constellation. They'll learn to fear our name. Minutes later, the final phase began. The station's lights dimmed to red. The core chamber resonated with a low hum that vibrated through every bolt and panel. The Perseus code spread through the system like a virus through blood. Orpheus's voice echoed through the bridge. Final synchronization complete. Awaiting command authorization. Kira stepped toward the console, hand hovering over the panel. The crew around her fell silent. Once I press this, she said, there's no stopping it. Chin swallowed. Then say something worth the end of the world. Kira looked out at the stars, the last stars humanity would ever see, and spoke quietly. To every human who ever lived, and every one who died dreaming of freedom, this is for you. She pressed her palm to the console. The core erupted in white light. From Tveren's flagship, the explosion looked almost beautiful. A ripple of energy burst from the asteroid belt, expanding faster than any sensor could track. His ships vanished, one after another, dissolving into raw particles. Report! He shouted, though the command deck was already melting around him. Unknown weapon, replicating, consuming. The voice cut off in static. Tveren's final thought, before the void took him, was disbelief. How did primitives build this? On Soul Command, the shockwave struck like a silent roar. Panels blew apart, systems died. Kira stood amid the storm, hair whipping in the artificial wind, eyes fixed on the horizon where stars were vanishing. Perseus is awake, Orpheus said softly. Kira nodded. Then the galaxy is, too. Chen's voice broke through the static. What now, Admiral? She turned toward him, calm amid the chaos. Now we warn them. Outside, space folded in on itself. The Perseus swarm expanded, devouring the Empire's pride one ship at a time. Kira whispered the same word across every open frequency, her voice echoing through 1,000 dying channels. Run! From the wreckage of Mars to the blackened glow of Earth's orbit, light itself seemed to twist under the spreading swarm. Project Perseus, humanity's final creation, had awakened completely. The stars flickered as the self-replicating storm consumed everything in its path. What began as a spark in the asteroid belt had become a devouring tide of silver mist. Ships, planets, even the dust between worlds, nothing endured its touch. Admiral Kira Vance stood on the ruined command bridge, smoke curling around shattered consoles. The air was thin, heavy with ozone and the smell of burned circuitry. Her uniform was torn, her voice ragged, but her eyes remained steady. Status, she said, coughing once into her fist. Orpheus, the ship's AI, responded through intermittent static. Imperial fleet annihilated. Remaining human vessels, 9 confirmed destroyed, 2 unresponsive. Structural failure imminent. Perseus control? There is no control, Orpheus replied. It is now self-directed. Expansion rate increasing exponentially. Commander Chen staggered across the tilted deck, gripping the railing. His face was smeared with blood, his breathing uneven. It's spreading beyond Sol, he said. Venus, Jupiter, gone. The swarm's breaking light speed limits. I didn't think that was possible. It wasn't, Kira said quietly. Until we made it so. He stared at her, torn between awe and fear. Then this is it. She looked toward the viewport. Through the cracking glass, the sun pulsed like a dying ember, its surface collapsing under the swarm's reflection. No, she said. Not yet. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Empire trembled. From the high citadel of Kith Prime to the outer colonies of the Varn Dominion, transmissions from Sol poured in, fragmented visuals of impossible destruction. Entire fleets erased in seconds. The Empire's greatest commanders, its most advanced weapons, gone. Alien leaders argued in panic. Some demanded retaliation, others evacuation. None could agree on what humanity had unleashed. The only clear message that reached every world came in a burst of static followed by a woman's voice. To all who hear this, run! The message repeated, unending, like a prophecy. Back aboard Sol Command, Kira sat before the main console, her hands trembling slightly as she keyed in manual overrides. Chen leaned against the bulkhead behind her, barely standing. Admiral, what are you doing? Recording, she said. For who? There's no one left to hear it. Kira looked up at the flickering holographic feed, distant systems already glowing under Perseus's advance. Someone will. Maybe not soon. Maybe not for 1,000 years. But someone will. She adjusted her collar, straightened her posture, and faced the recorder. The light blinked red. This is Admiral Kira Vance of the United Terran Remnant, she began, her voice low but clear. To every civilization within reach of this signal, this is not a threat. It's a memory. She paused, letting the words hang in the air. For centuries you called us savages. You enslaved us, stripped our worlds, told us to kneel. We obeyed for a time. But when you took everything, you taught us one truth: if survival requires fear, then fear will serve. Chen's eyes glistened as she continued. We built Perseus not to win, but to be remembered. It is our answer to extinction, a mirror held to every empire that ever thought itself immortal. We asked only to be left alone. You refused. So here we are. The ship creaked under another impact. Sparks fell across the floor. Kira ignored them. If you're hearing this, the swarm is already moving. You cannot stop it. You can only flee. And while you run, remember the species you tried to erase. She leaned closer to the recorder. We were human. We endured everything the stars could throw at us. We loved, we built, we fought, and when the end came, we did not beg. Her voice softened. You feared our violence. You should have feared our resolve. She ended the transmission. The console flickered once, then sent the message across every open channel. It would echo through hyperspace long after the system itself was gone. Chen sank to the floor, head bowed. They'll call us monsters. Kira crouched beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. Let them. Monsters don't die quietly. The lights dimmed further. Orpheus's voice, once steady, now wavered with distortion. Admiral, the swarm's density is collapsing local space. The sun will implode in 20 minutes. Can we outrun it? She asked, though she already knew. Negative. Escape velocity unattainable. Chen laughed weakly. So this is it. The end of everything. Kira shook her head. No. Not everything. Just us. Far beyond Sol, the remnants of the Imperial frontier fleets caught fragments of Kira's broadcast. Some dismissed it as human propaganda. Others saw the raw data, the readings from destroyed systems, and fled. Entire sectors went dark, their populations evacuating without orders. Trade routes collapsed. Panic spread faster than light. And always, through every communication network, her final words pulsed, "Run." Inside the Perseus chamber, the containment core glowed brighter than ever. Kira entered alone, leaving Chin on the bridge. The sphere had expanded, tendrils of light weaving through cracked walls. The air hummed with the vibration of endless replication. Orpheus's voice followed her inside. "Admiral, continued presence in this chamber is lethal." "So is leaving," she replied. She approached the core, feeling the heat on her face. "Can you still isolate a data imprint?" "Affirmative, though the process risks destabilization." "Do it," she said. "Transfer my consciousness to the network. If Perseus survives, so will I." "Purpose of this request?" "Someone has to remember what we were." A pause. Then, softly, "Understood." Light enveloped her as Orpheus began the upload. Memories flashed. Her childhood on Titan, the first time she saw Earth from orbit, the faces of those who followed her into impossible wars. Each moment dissolved into the growing pulse of Perseus. As the process neared completion, Orpheus spoke one last time. "Admiral, human presence detected in bridge chamber. Commander Chin remains on board." Kira smiled faintly. "He was never the type to abandon ship." On the bridge, Chin watched the sun vanish behind a veil of metallic mist. The station trembled, its supports failing. He activated the comms one last time. "Admiral," he whispered, "if you can hear me, thank you." Then the line went silent. The collapse began with a soundless flash. The Perseus swarm folded in on itself, consuming Soul Command and the dying star in one luminous breath. Space twisted, then straightened, leaving behind nothing but darkness, and a single drifting signal, faint but unending. Centuries later, explorers from a distant civilization traced that signal to a forgotten region of empty space. Their instruments detected no star, no planet, only a whisper buried in radiation. When they decrypted it, the words were simple. "This is Admiral Kira Vance. Humanity was here. Run." The crew sat in silence as the message looped again, each syllable heavy with warning and pride. Beyond their viewports, faint silver lights stirred in the dark, tiny motes, waking once more. The explorers turned their ships and fled without speaking. And far behind them, in the endless void, the Perseus swarm began to move again, carrying within its code the mind of a woman who refused to die, whispering the same command to every world it found. "Run."